All right, everybody, I think we're ready to start. If you guys are ready, we're ready. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. Our topic is social engagement, tracking the real-time social graph, content, communication, and advertising. I'm Nancy King. I'll be your moderator today. So social media has matured, and the conversations we're hearing today really revolve around effectiveness and performance management. In addition, we've heard some conversations surrounding the role of organic brand marketing in social media as opposed to paid social media, as an example. So today we're going to explore some of these topics with our wonderful and distinguished panel. I would like for each of you in turn to introduce yourself. We'll just go down the line and give a brief background of your company and what kind of problems you solve for your clients, and also where you are in the value chain. Are you an agency? Are you a social media platform, et cetera, so people have an idea of where you are in the value chain. Starting with Mark.
Okay, well, thanks, Nancy, and thanks for having us here. And
great.
Thanks to all of you for coming. So I'm Mark Carlson. The company is SimpleFeed. We're a social media publishing and analytics platform, so we're a technology company. Our offering is called the Social Syndication Hub, and we work with lots of large corporations. We work with Toyota, EMC, McKinsey, Juniper, Consumer Reports, lots and lots of brands, media companies, and so forth. So we specialize in helping our customers, these big brands, make their distribution channel a successful social media channel. So let's take an example. Since most people bought a car, we'll take the example of Toyota. Toyota has 1,200 dealers throughout the United States. Nearly all of those dealers have Facebook page, Twitter, Google+. And very often, people will set this up, in a car dealer. They're small businesses, independent companies, and maybe, publish for a little while and then kind of give up or change jobs or whatever it might be. A consumer goes to that Facebook page, and when they're in market for a car, and they say, looking for reviews or contact information, and they see that, it's kind of a ghost ship page. So that's not good. Maybe the consumer goes to another dealer or they buy a Honda. So one of the many things we do for them is we aggregate all Toyota content, web content, social content, so their Facebook content, their YouTube channel, their Instagram channel, their press room, their incentive offers, tons and tons of things, 20 to 50 pieces of content each and every day. And we algorithmically determine where we should publish that out and when we should publish that out to Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and their websites as well. Basically, and then we measure the results, obviously. So basically, if you have a distribution channel you don't own and you want to get your content blasted out far and wide, that's what we do.
Great. Aaron.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Aaron Zahavi. I am the Chief Rewards Officer with Swagbucks.com. We are the flagship site of a company called Protege, which has a few different companies that are involved with essentially just connecting targeted customers with advertisers. And Swagbucks has been around for about 8 years. We are an online rewards and loyalty program. It's kind of like frequent flyer miles for being online. So people can shop through any of our 1,000 affiliate shopping sites, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Expedia, on down the line. They can earn points. They can watch videos. We have over 1 million video views a day through multiple apps, as well as our desktop from the top content creators. They earn points. They can do market research and surveys, polls, earn points. We have a lot of direct deals. People want to get an insurance quote or try out Proactive or whatever it may be. So hundreds of these direct opportunities, they earn points. They can play games. And then just various ways to earn these points. They can search the web. They redeem them essentially for gift cards. So we're monetizing their regular online activity, while at the same time we are able to introduce them to different brands and advertisers. And what we've done is create our own engaged community. So people that are members of our community are really fiercely loyal, a lot of it because of the value that we bring and the fun that we bring. And because of that, the advertisers are able to have their message heard by an audience that is receptive because of the way that we're doing it, and not just because they're getting points for it, but it's because it's being done in a fun and engaging way. So, an incentive is a 4-letter word for a lot of advertisers, and we don't look at ourselves as incentive. And there is a more than a semantic difference between incentive and reward. I think that you think incentive and it's dangling the carrot in front of the horse and trying to get the horse to do what you want them to do, to eat something they don't even really want. What we do is we present things that customers or our members like to do and want to do, and then we reward them for their engagement.
Great. Ori.
Morning. I'm Ori Nakar. I'm the Chief Product Officer for Telescope. Telescope helps broadcasters, production companies, and brands connect with their audiences on TV, social media, and digital. We started in the US about 14 years ago with American Idol being our first project, starting small. And really the goal there was to connect production, TV, with their audience in the form of voting. As I said, that was pretty much our first project, but from there, this whole area of interactive TV, social TV is really mushroomed, and now having a lot of different clients across TV and on TV, Idol, Voice, America's Got Talent, dancing on every single platform that you can think of, as well as brands, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Vans, Universal Music. We are an ecosystem partner of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and have done a lot of different executions for them here in the US and around the world. The main area where we're different, I think, from a lot of other companies is we're a tech-backed agency. So our approach is it's not about just taking content and publishing it out there. It's about engaging consumers, and by engaging I mean have some sort of a dialogue or an interaction with the consumer, whether it's in the form of voting, in the form of Q&A, in the form of even allowing your audiences to create memes from your own content. And those are the types of experiences that we're powering.
Good morning. My name is Malcolm Friedberg, and I have to say my job's not nearly as sexy as these guys. So, I'm the CMO of a company called CleverTap. We're a mobile messaging platform and analytics platform. Mobile messaging is a fancy way of saying push notifications. So all those little messages you get on your phone, we're one of a handful of companies that power those. A little bit about my background. I came up in the email world, so Eloquon, Marketo, and for me, a lot of what I see on the mobile landscape is kind of email 2.0. Marketers, developers are really struggling with how do they use this new medium. Obviously, everybody knows that it's the future of communication, but how do I use it effectively? And even just in the last 12 months, the game seems to have changed from how do I acquire users to how do I actually retain users. So we take pride in trying to educate the market about all these issues and hopefully help people get successful in creating and monetizing their apps.
Great. Rebecca.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Markarian. I'm the Senior Vice President of Digital and Social for a company called Eisenberg Group in Pasadena. I think some of my colleagues have been on some earlier panels, so if that name sounds familiar, that's probably why. We call ourselves a social forward agency, and really we come in kind of at a different part of the experience. We're about creating content and experiences that drive conversation. We manage social channels, we do creative strategy, we do social strategy, we do the analytics, pretty much full service. Some of our clients are Xbox, Microsoft devices like Surface, HoloLens, Band. We also work with Yahoo on some of their original programming, and some other clients as well, Sony and Crackle. So really cool, fun stuff. And in terms of engaging the social graph, we're actually kind of the top level of that. So our goal is to really create the content that gets the social graph talking, and then in real time understand what they're talking about and feed the fire, and sort of keep the fire burning as bright as we can. So that's kind of what I do in my role.
Great. Smita.
Hi, my name's Smita, and I'm the founder of a startup called Stanza. And our premise is a little different from everyone else on the panel, but touches on mobile. What we help brands and organizations do is get their events and reminders into an app that people use every day. It's pre-installed across every device and comes in notifications, your calendar. And really what we're trying to do is work with some of these top brands. We currently work with NFL teams, NBA teams, NHL teams, and help them package their content into bite-sized formats that fits within this app, but also helps users engage in a very timely way. And what we've already talked about is how social media is maturing, but really what's the future? Now the devices are getting smaller. If you think about mobile, if you think about watch, people just aren't searching for your content anymore. It really has to be surfaced. And so we're one of those companies that's playing in that area.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, you guys. This is going to be a good discussion today. So now I'm going to tell you a little something that I read. It's Mark's fault. He turned me on to this, telling me all this buzz that's going on in the blogosphere about social media. So about 2 months ago, 2 ex-Forrester Research guys were blogging out there together and writing little articles about how social media marketing is dead or dying. And it's time to start over. Lots of big statements there. But I took 3 statements from some of these articles that I thought were really interesting, and I wanted to ask the panel to discuss these. So I'm going to bear with me while I kind of read through this with you because they're kind of interesting. But from the discussion to start, some of the analysts were arguing that blame Facebook for the limited organic reach, because that's what's going on out there now, and that because of that, it's destroying brand conversion. If you can't reach your people, you can't convert them, right? And others are saying that organic versus paid, but organic brand content that's put into our news feeds is just not going to measure up with this stuff we really want to hear about from our friends, from our families, from our sports teams, right? So that's what they're saying the problem is, that it can't measure up, and so brands should basically give up and hand those budgets over to the paid media group, all right? That's grenade number 1, all right? So number 2 then, the other thing they talked about was that brands that win in the social era will not be better at storytelling. I'm sure you've heard a lot about storytelling throughout this whole event this past 4 days, but will not be better at storytelling, but in using social media to hear, help, educate, encourage, empower, connect, and respond to their customers as prospects, as individuals. So it has to do with an individual connection, not pushing big messages out there, thinking we're telling a story when in fact, are they even paying attention? Because they said those types of marketing efforts are not marketing efforts, and they don't scale. Another big statement. And last but not least, to kind of tie that up, in a social and mobile world, brands are not created by the messages they broadcast, but by the experiences they offer that build trust, earn loyalty, and spur on word of mouth. Okay, a lot of stuff there, and I'm sure we're going to get some good discussion on this. I'm just going to open it up. I'm not going to go down. I'm just going to ask whoever wants to start to jump in.
Well, I want to make sure I get that quote right. That last one, can you just repeat that?
I will. Yeah. In a social and mobile world, brands are not created by the messages they broadcast, but by the experiences they offer that build trust, earn loyalty, and spur word of mouth.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000,000,000%. So
I knew you would on that. I knew you would on that one.
And maybe speaking biasly from our company and what we've done, but it's so true. Everyone's heard messages before. I mean, we've become somewhat numb to hearing buzzwords, but what people are looking for are feelings, and they're looking for experiences, and they're looking to be moved and touched, and they want to break through this sea of just consumerism. And so there are ways to do that. You can still have a product and still reach people but having them be engaged. And I know for us, what we do with our Facebook one, what we or really all of our social media is we've just focused on building the community aspect and having things be fun and having dynamic promotions and integrated messages with advertisers and having it be enjoyable, and we want people to get to know each other and really build that community aspect. So whatever you're doing, whatever the message is, it's just about engagement. I mean, just focus on not are the people going to hear my message, but are they going to feel something? Are they going to enjoy what we're providing them? Is there going to be value? Is there going to be humor? Is there going to be fun? Is there going to be engagement? So absolutely, if you're not engaging your customers on an emotional level, then they will be completely immune to any of your brand messaging.
Great. Thanks.
I would make a distinction between B2B and B2C. For years, I've been skeptical of the value of social media at B2B companies. I mean, B2C, I get if you like Coca-Cola or you like a particular tennis racket or whatever social experience with your company that you have brand loyalty, that makes sense. But if you move that into a B2B context, it's kind of hard to engender the same kind of emotional reaction and connection. So I think that the idea that a B2B company could use social media to develop that kind of following, I mean, I can't see anybody getting fired up about like Polycom or, Cisco, and arguably maybe a car, but even that, is obviously more a B2B than a B2C, or a B2C than a B2B experience for most individuals. So I think that emotional aspect on the B2C side, engendering that kind of emotional connection is absolutely critical. And I think the other aspect that I've seen happen in the marketplace is that people want authenticity. And so this idea, the comment of going to paid media, I think goes to that point of if you're trying to advertise to people in a B2C context, people just really aren't that interested in hearing it. They're interested in, Odell Beckham's big catch or Donald Trump's last statement or, the recall of a particular car if they own it. But, the typical marketing schmap that most companies put out really is not appropriate in the social media vein. And so I think that ultimately leaves B2B brands to use it as just a way to amplify their content and their message in a very limited kind of way.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I would jump in on the paid media thing. I mean, yeah, there's reduced reach in Facebook, but if you just throw paid media at it and your content isn't good, you've just wasted your money. Like the content, to Aaron's point, and I probably said that wrong, I apologize. But it has to be good. It has to be engaging. It has to provide some kind of value to whoever's going to see it, whether it's paid or not paid, right? I mean, everyone knows how to read the little sponsored sign. We all get it. We know that that's a paid placement. If it's good, we don't care. If it's fun, it's engaging, it teaches me something, it entertains me, it makes me laugh, it adds value to my life, it makes me connected to the product or the experience you're trying to sell me. Great. That's probably pretty good. You better make sure that paid media is pretty targeted to who you want to reach, and the message is, I see a lot of brands who create one Facebook post and they target it to everyone. Probably the worst thing you could do, right? You'd much better off thinking about the audience, creating 10 Facebook posts that you amplify strategically to different audiences. The other thing I wanted to tackle is the idea that social media is dead. I think that's a really interesting statement. I partly agree and partly disagree. The part of me that agrees, and maybe I'm putting myself out of a job since I run social media, is that I just hope in a year we don't talk about social media because it's all just conversation, right? And it shouldn't be about a Facebook channel or an Instagram channel. It should be about the conversation you're trying to create and maintain and foster and build a relationship with your fans. Whether you do that on social media, you do it through really great display ads, you do it through a mobile app, however you do that, it's actually fine. One of our most successful social programs we've done this year is a podcast. It's not on Facebook, it's not on Twitter, I mean we promote it on those, but it's on a completely different medium. But it created conversation, engaged people, told them a story, brought them in really deep. So maybe social media is dead, and maybe it's just the way we talk about it.
Great.
I mean, I think just to clarify that article a little bit, I mean, that article was talking about a very particular practice of regularly posting content on social media and just using the organic reach that you have by your followers to spread that content out there. And I think that that's in particular what the article was saying. Look, as social media companies ramp up their monetization strategies, we're gonna limit the access that brands have to even to their own subscribers, and encourage them to pay for that reach. And I absolutely agree with that, and I think that is something that's going away. I think that I mean, look, from experience, that one of the most recent campaigns that we ran was for NASA. It was the Blood Moon event that happened a few weeks ago, and in really less than a couple of weeks, we put together a campaign for them that just allowed users to very quickly and easily, from their mobile devices, submit photos of their Blood Moon experience. And it was one of the most successful campaigns that NASA had. There was no paid media behind it. It was really just through their organic reach. So I think that, and I think we saw something like 5,000 or 6,000 photos submitted. We turned that into a competition. There was a vote, so NASA picked 6 photos that they liked the most, and then there was a vote for the for the best photo. Now, there are a couple of things to take from that. One is, again, there was no paid media behind it, but you essentially opened the door for your own users to interact with you and to submit their own content. By doing that, all of their followers, all of their friends, started that conversation, and to the point that the article makes, that word of mouth started. And then I think it also gave NASA the ability to connect back with their audience and just say, hey, look, here are photos that we like. And some of them were quirky, some of them were kind of just very good photos, and let their audience vote. So I think that that's a good example of a brand that opened the doors to to that two-way communication, not just, hey, we're producing content and you consume it, and hopefully it's great content, but there is a two-way communication here, and the brand interacts back with you.
Great.
So I'd say that the decline in organic reach is a big issue. It's very focused on Facebook, which many people are, not so much in the other social networks. And in those articles, they do call out areas where it does work, such as small businesses with limited fan counts, like a Toyota dealer, for example, or a distributor of EMC products, where they have maybe 400 fans, and so Facebook doesn't penalize them as much. And then also, do you have the kind of product that people like to talk about, like cars, fashion, or most importantly for this audience, entertainment? You might think about how many times you got the Star Wars trailer on Monday night in your news feed, or how much you saw yesterday about Back to the Future. People like to share that kind of stuff, and it can work real well there. But I think the panel is, generally right that we're coming to a cusp here of you're either in the content business or you're not, and you're going to have to create deep content that's really, really useful to get through these filters, to get it out into notifications, to get people talking about it. The days of just being able to take some campaign and put the image in 2 lines of text and say, what do you think? I don't think that's a good use of money. Finally, I'll give you 2 tactics on terms of organic reach that we see are working. If you're concerned about this, one is people pulling social back into their website. So if you go to EMC and click on the EMC 1 button, you'll see an excellent example of that, of a very slick area where they pull in all their Facebook, LinkedIn, SlideShare, Flickr, all their social environment. You can flip through it really quickly and share and subscribe and so forth. Another thing we see that's reasonably successful in the organic reach area is extracting the content you put into Facebook and sending it out as email, which is probably feels like an old retrograde, oh my God, but who sends more email than Facebook, right? I mean, they're probably the biggest emailer on the internet, and they do it because it works. So that is a way that if you have 1 million fans and Facebook's only showing your stuff to 10,000 of them, and you got 1 million email subscribers, offer it as an option, and people like it.
That's great. That's a good
So,
point.
not to belabor the point, but the one counterexample to B2B marketing not evoking emotion is Slack. I think it's a great company that's come out, and it's helped you as a small business or even a large business get excited about communicating over chat. So there's something to be said about taking, traditionally clunky and really unsexy businesses and turning them into, billion-dollar businesses in over a year. But one of the things that I think we learned through our experience working with teams, like if you think about a Warriors game, like you go to a Warriors game and the entire atmosphere is completely electric. You love every second of it, from the Jumbotron to the people around you, to the friends, your drinks, etc. And what the Warriors want to do is have that feeling linger even when you leave, the arena. And how do they kind of have you, remember that even in the off season? And so what these teams are doing, since they've always been at the cutting edge of social media, is using mobile, in new and creative ways. the Niners, for example, have their Venue Next app, which is a great way for if you're whether in your seat, you can go through and you can order things, but even when you're not in the arena, you can know about player appearances or other things that are going on. And I think the way they're thinking about it is completing the user story. So it's not just about one particular event that happens, but how does it connect to the last thing the user saw and the next thing the user is going to see. So you're constantly part of their lives and on top of mind. And by being able to personalize it is kind of how they've kept that brand up and constantly been selling tickets.
Great. Rebecca, you just mentioned podcasting a minute ago, which takes me kind of in the next area, which is where are you finding your content most effective? And podcasting is old, but is it new again? Are people just turning their attention to that now? Kind of a revival.
Yeah, podcasting it's hot, right? Serial really kind of brought it back and made it more about entertainment than ever. So we launched last year a podcast called Hunt the Truth for Halo, the video game. Some of you guys might have heard of it. It's a big sci-fi franchise. It's all in lore. We sort of set out with this idea that we kind of had this creative notion of there's a hero, Master Chief, and he's maybe gone rogue, and we were like, what if we built a whole story about this? People love, from social analytics, we knew people loved talking about the hero more than anything, and, he was their hero and the people's hero, and if we're going to accuse him of being a traitor, that's going to start some conversation, and then what if we built an entire world around that? And so we did. We wrote a 13-episode podcast. It was one of the top iTunes podcasts last year. We were #1 in video games pretty much all year, in games and hobbies as well. But I think the thing about it is, again, it was a social idea. It was a social team who created it. It wasn't an ad team. It wasn't a group of, Hollywood producers. We got some help. We tried to get some help. If there's anyone from Gimlet listening, you should have taken our call. But we tried to get some help from some professionals. We got laughed at a lot. People were like, oh, that's never going to work. You can't do that. But I think the environment's changing, right? Podcasting is really hot among millennials. You can listen on demand, right? People tend to listen at night before they go to bed. They tend to have really high favorability ratings for the podcasts they listen to. Because of that, it tends to be their thing that they do privately. They have their headsets on, right? And they do it on an airplane. And the behavior is very different. A little bit like radio back in the day, right? It's kind of your car, your quiet time. You listen to what you want to listen to, whether that's a book or a station or music, and it's kind of personalized to you. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in content to think out of the box and really think about, what's winning. Audio is winning big time. Motion is winning in every way, which is hard for a lot of social teams, right, who don't have a budget and maybe a video editor. I think there's a lot of apps making it more accessible, but it's still pretty hard. But GIFs, anything you can put in motion that you can animate, right, it catches your eye. It has that, as Facebook would say, the thumb stop power, right? You see motion and you kind of are drawn into it. So I think those are really hot trends that can help on the organic side. You can see organic lift of a video, especially posted natively to Facebook. Another trick. Any video you post natively to Facebook probably gets 80 to 100% higher organic reach than a image post. Also link posts tend to do a little bit better, and text only. People always think like, oh, I have to have a visual. Sometimes if you've got something to say and it's short and it's brief and it's fun and it's just informative, just post it. Like, don't worry about so much about the visual. Just get the information out there.
That's great. Mark, you had also mentioned podcasting to me earlier as a trend you're seeing, even B2B or B2C.
Yeah, it's huge in B2B. It's huge everywhere. And I think that, some of the things that kind of tipped it was, the NPR thing, Serial, but also, Apple busted out the podcasting app as its own app, and now you don't have to hunt through the iTunes store to find podcasts that are of interest to you. It's all like right there, and when there's a new one, you get a notification, and you're off. So it's I think when I was in Atlanta and I took 3 Ubers to various meetings, and every single one of them was listening to podcasts. So I was like, whoa, So yeah, huge, very, very successful. We're redoing. I guess another point is that there are new distribution areas too, besides just the podcasting app. Like SoundCloud is big in podcasts now, and so the millennials listen to their music and then they find it there too.
Right. Okay. So where are you guys finding your content most effective?
We're using a lot of the traditional channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is great for us. But even it sounds hearing like what the panel's talking about with the podcast, you can find it anywhere. If there's people that are engaging with any channel, any medium, then that's a good place for you to be. And it's just sort of about having that creative outside of the box product placement. It's kind of what it is, but to Malcolm's point, it has to be authentic. So, the story that you guys created with the hero, it's just something that I'm assuming you thought, oh, this would be really fun. Our people would like this, and you did it coming from that place in terms of like, if we do a podcast about a hero, we're going to sell a lot more products. I'm guessing
awareness, a lot of awareness, and I think the core, we knew that the core loved it, and I think it was mentioned earlier, you might have mentioned it yourself, like, if a core fan, right, you're trying to always talk to the core, like the people who already love you, right, but if they start talking really loud, all of a sudden more people love you, and more people love you, and that was what we were trying to get to, was to stir up a huge amount of conversation that breached way beyond our current fan base.
Yeah, and yet there's no better marketer than an engaged fan. And you guys, we all know this, if you're going to be much more likely to see a movie or go to a restaurant or do something if a friend of yours tells you it's great than if you read a review about it. Right. So find ways to engage with them. We on Instagram we would do things. We did something as an example with Home Depot of a DIY. They wanted us to move more gift cards, so we did a DIY promotion, and we would have pictures of different things they could do around their house, and that's great because you could actually see things, and people could post their own ideas of things that they've built. So could they have gone and bought the stuff at Lowe's or somewhere else? Sure, but tying it back into something that engages them and that's relevant to the brand in a medium that fits what we're trying to do. And I think that's all it is using wherever your people are and then finding ways to incorporate it within that channel.
Great.
I would add just, I agree with everything said. I think the one social network that we're keeping a close eye on now is Tumblr. I think that it is still it's still a very authentic social network. There aren't a lot of subscribers there, and it'll be interesting to see. And I know Yahoo is very much behind it. We're actually going to run a campaign on it next month. So it'll be interesting to see what type of engagement we get, and if that engagement spills outside of Tumblr and into other social networks, and what type of effect it has. But I think that Tumblr post Yahoo is an interesting social network for us to keep an eye on.
That's great. Smita.
Well, yeah, as a millennial, what do I spend my time on, and what do I consume?
You have to say it.
So to be honest, our generation is known for lean back. We, not wanting to speak for the entire generation, I like to think that the services and the apps that I like to spend my time on are the ones that, surprisingly do solve a problem. Yes, we are a generation where, things have kind of been easier, but we do have legitimate problems. And organizations and brands that we end up, relating to and transacting with are ones that realize that and solve our problems as quickly as possible. So it could be as simple as, in San Francisco, like if I'm leaving a concert, I know there's going to be there's going to be a ton of traffic. If Uber can automatically send me an alert being like, hey, order your Uber now and don't wait for 30 minutes. That's fantastic. I'm going to engage with that. You've solved a problem for me. I may pay a little bit more for it, but you're thinking ahead for me. You're connecting the dots again. And I think that kind of comes into play with podcasts as well as new kinds of content that's coming out there. Is like there's already so much data out there as to what I like and what I spend my time on. And now again, you're connecting the dots for me and showing me other things that I'd like to listen to or engage with. And I think companies that get to the forefront of it, which is going beyond just content creation, but content curation, where now I really don't have to do anything but turn on this app and you're going to give me things that I can start talking about. And I think that's really what you guys are talking about, and that's what's really exciting.
Awesome. Were you going to add something?
Sure. I'll just add that a lot of people on the panel talk about notifications, and I think that's kind of a big area to be looking at. Smith is looking at calendar, Malcolm's looking at notifications. And so today, in 2015, our customers are very, very focused on Facebook, for better or worse. But I think in 16, they're going to be looking at how are you going to get your content into that notification stream on people's mobile devices? Because that, people are less now likely to be searching on a web browser, and they're more likely just to get this content to them. We're moving from this pull to push environment. And so some of the things that we're excited about for 16 are things like Flipboard, Snapchat Stories, Apple News, and podcasting. Because all of those, you can get your content in, and often all you need is an RSS feed of content to get in there, and they are all, particularly Apple News, if you've upgraded to OS 9 and you swiped right, it's like, wow, what's that? And so if you can get your content in there, that's a very, very powerful area. Now, these are not social. It's shareable, but it's not so much social. And so I think, maybe these newer environments are more about content marketing, content curation, content creation than about social.
Speaking of turning a little bit to syndication versus hand curation, you have a social syndication hub. And you take that's a predictive model, right?
Right.
That takes content and it decides what yields the best results, and then you can take that content and push it out to the social sites and to the web, right?
That's correct.
So what kind of results is this predictive analytics yielding? Is there something you can talk about, one of your clients?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so today if you're a social media manager, you probably have a calendar, and you know what campaigns are coming down and what content is coming down. You build out your calendar of this day, we're going to put this on Facebook and this on Twitter and so forth. And if you have a couple pieces of content, then you kind of use your gut. It's kind of an art about what you're going to post that particular day. So our company started in this world of RSS feeds. Like in the Toyota example I gave you, we might have 20 to 50 pieces of content a day. And so when we started publishing into social, obviously you can't publish 50 things a day. You'd really antagonize everyone. So we had to figure out, what are you going to publish? And initially it was like incredibly lame. We're like, well, I don't know, that environmental stuff seems to do good, so why don't we start with that? And I don't know, people like you too, so I'll be the second. We just kind of force ranked it. And then some bright light said, well, you never show people ads based on that. We have all this data about what's working at each individual car dealer. Why don't we build a little algorithm for that? So we did that, and we do a little textual analysis of every piece of content, and we know where it came from. Is this a YouTube video? Is this a press release? Is this a whatever piece of social content? And we know through Facebook, you can tell when the graph is optimally available, when people are most likely to see it, and we publish it out. And so, no huge surprise that we got a huge lift versus like that, kind of going from art to science. And in 1 month, we got a 56% increase in engagement in Facebook for Toyota dealers, which is huge. There's 1,200 of them. And then the algorithm continues to learn, and you get incremental increases every month since then. So it's an interesting area of automation and social.
That's great. Aran, you're kind of on the other side of that, the syndication model. You do a lot of hand curation, which is kind of the central to your social media strategy. Want to comment on that?
Sure, yeah. Well, one thing we've done with our Facebook is we don't look at it simply as a marketing platform through social media. We look at it as a customer support platform.
Exactly.
So we have we'll have some people on the marketing team keep up on it and do stuff, but we'll always have somebody with our customer support team monitoring the walls as well to be able to engage. Because when somebody comes up and they post something on your wall, maybe it's something great, maybe it's something bad, whatever it is, but it's their way of reaching out to you, whether it's passively or aggressively or indirectly or directly or whatever it is. So it's so important to get ahead of the message and to respond to them, even if they're not requesting your response. They want to hear from you. That's why they're reaching out. There's nothing worse than not hearing from your customers or having an apathetic customer. We'd rather have somebody who's vocal, who might say they didn't like this change we made or something, because they're talking, because they care, and we want to respond to that. And it's a great opportunity to build trust and to show that we respect their voice and that you're hearing their what they have to say. So that manual curation of paying attention to what they're saying is really important. Even on, there's a subreddit that's really popular on Swagbucks, so we don't control. It's done by our members, but it all bleeds over if if we treat your customers well wherever you can, then they're going to start self-regulating themselves. And the people who enjoy our product, that we treat well, that we treat with respect, that get value from us, if somebody comes on and starts spouting off some stuff that isn't too clean or isn't too kind, then they'll probably talk about it before we do. So there's a trickle-down effect as well to having that manual direct curation. And just as a fun note, we talked about this, Nancy, if you want to see a good case of what happens if you don't do that, go check out when Target changed their model to have gender-neutral toy sections, and their Facebook wall was blowing up with complaints. And a very entrepreneurative, creative guy decided to create a Facebook profile called Target Customer Support, and he put the Target logo as his logo, and he went on and responded to these people just as any of us could have responded, but it was from Target Customer Support, and he did it for hours. And it's amazing, and you should all check it out after this. Go search for it and find it. But how do they go for hours with having somebody on their wall posing as them, interacting with their customers? I mean, we all benefited from the humor of it, but what a real damage to their brand from not paying attention and having somebody that is manually curating. So to bring that back, obviously. What's that?
Did Target take legal action?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure. So now to the tools, the syndication, absolutely. Those are great tools that need to have a human touch to use, so that you can see what the responses are.
Right.
Yeah,
How about?
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Rebecca.
I was gonna say I would add. I totally agree with that. And the other thing I would add is if you are on the marketing side, so we work with pretty big global brands, so we tend to be the creative, like, marketing side, and we do less of the responding. There's another group who does that, and they do a great job at it. And what we've done is built a great relationship with them, so they're feeding us those insights that are coming out of that, like what people are talking about. With the podcast, what we actually did is people were creating these cool, and you see it a lot in Hollywood, these reaction videos. So after each episode, someone would create like, oh my God, this was mind-blowing. And because we were in production all the time, actually what we were able to do was reach out to those people, and we offered them to become a character in the podcast. So the responding team helped us identify all those people who were like, oh, this is crazy, like, I'm loving it. And we actually sent a blast out. We picked, I think it was 15 sort of big influencers who had a bit of a following. We gave them instructions. They created videos for their fans, told all their fans, this was all free, by the way, all we did was create a PowerPoint slide that gave them instructions. They sent us voicemails. We got 300 audio submissions in 24 hours.
Wow.
And we posted that on our SoundCloud as a file where you could listen to all of the fan submissions. We had 1 million listens on just that in a week. And it was just people searching for their own voices. And I think, closing the loop is, how do you not just care and feed for your customers, but how do you actually bring them full circle back into the experience and actually make them the hero? Because at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about you and what you're trying to put out, right? It's about celebrating them and their reaction and involvement in that. And when we first reached out to the influencers, funny story, we called one of the guys who was in Australia and said, so in his videos we get like 300, 400 views. I mean, they weren't huge, but we just loved him. And we're like, so every Xbox executive has been listening to your reaction videos, and he just about died. He was like, are you kidding? I was like, no, it's passed around in every Xbox meeting. And he, from that moment on, was like our biggest fan, right? Anything we needed, anything like he could do. And not because we were paying him, we weren't. It was just because he really loved the brand, and he thought it was really cool and fun that he could be involved.
A great brand ambassador for you, for sure.
Absolutely.
Right. Ori, how about you? What's your mix of curation, hand curation, and syndication?
So it's a mix of both, and I agree with Rebecca. I think that's a great example of if you give a platform for your audience, your advocates to contribute, and then use content that you get from them as part of your narrative, you are giving them a stage and you are turning them into your ambassadors. And I think that's something that we try to do with almost every campaign. A lot of our campaigns a lot of the content that we create ends up on air. So the Fox debate was probably a good example where the presidential debate, where users could submit questions that would be asked of the nominees. Something like that has to be hand curated. It ends up on air, and you want to make sure that you pick the right content. So we use a combination of two things. We do have algorithms that would float content that is more likely to be meaningful. So it comes from high influencers. It's shared a lot. It's someone that interacts with the brand over time a lot. And those get surfaced in front of a moderator, and then that moderator can push that content to the different platforms. I think that a lot of our clients, certainly I'd say, Coke, McDonald's, they've been burnt by campaigns that were fully automated and relied solely on automation, particularly when they had high degree of visibility, and they tend to go for hand-curated as well.
All right. Okay, let's turn a little bit to our KPIs, our key performance indicators. Obviously, we talked about this being social engagement. It's about engagement. But what kinds of KPIs are your clients holding your feet to the fire to deliver beyond engagement? Smita?
I mean, for us, it's actually a little bit more straightforward because you are in people's calendars, and we've added one additional dimension of time, right? So not only are you a Warriors fan who's going to the next game, but we're actually going to tell you where they are and when that's going to be happening. So for them, it's driving ticketing sales. So are people going through and clicking on ticket sales within their calendar events and buying tickets? It's also tune in. So have they gone through, put their zip code in and TV provider, and are they actually going through and tuning in? So it is the whole completing the loop, but it's also seeing how it hits our bottom line. And I think, again, we're part of that whole new product launch, products that are being released now where it goes beyond just engagement in, hey, we're having a conversation, but are these people actually spending dollars with us? And if they are spending dollars, can we track that, and then can we turn that into a loop that we can then optimize and figure out what is the right time to talk to this person so I can get them to spend money with us as well as continue to tell the story.
I guess we'll just go down the line. Back to Rebecca.
Oh gosh, it can be a lot of different things in our case. Sometimes we have a scorecard of 20 different metrics we're tracking against that we have KPIs against all of them. I mean, the common one is engagement. We tend to look a lot at share of voice. So if we're looking at Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo, or Yahoo versus Netflix versus Amazon, we tend to look at, are we creating more conversation? Are we eating into the share of conversation that is happening? And then we also look at the content we publish and how we can track that. So with some of the brands, they've allowed us access as far as into their websites, into their Amazon pages, et cetera. And we can track from a particular post all the way through what device they purchased and which package. That's really the holy grail. It takes a lot of work to do that, and if you're depending on your organization, if you have control of all those things, you can definitely do it. It's still a lot of work, but if you're more siloed out, it's extremely difficult to get that tracking all the way through to the final purchase point. And obviously you lose some at retail if they're going to a brick and mortar place. But I think that's kind of what we're all shooting for, is how do we, I think to your point, impact the bottom line, right? At the end of the day, for me, I'm there to sell video games or, books or movies or get downloads and subscriptions. So I'm trying to get to that holy grail of tracking. It's not easy, though.
Yeah, that could be that's definitely a whole nother panel.
It
It could be a week's worth of time on measurement. But, sorry, Malcolm.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different perspective. I think, the KPI question is a little like how long is a piece of string. I think that in certain cases we all want to, as marketers, we all want to impact the bottom line. In other cases, if you're doing a branding or an awareness campaign, then it's not an economic analysis. I think what kind of underlies this whole conversation that that maybe needs to be brought out is it's really about how does the marketer segment and then use the different channels to match the audience with the message, with the segment. So we talk about podcasts. Podcasts are great. However, if your audience is a demographic that isn't interested in podcasts, then that's not going to work so well. For years, people have said email is dead. I see very little evidence of the fact that email is going anywhere.
Agreed.
It's the workhorse for most marketers. You know, I have a 15-year-old, so with respect to the millennials, I mean, they're notoriously fickle. So part of the being a best-of-breed marketer is being nimble enough to see the new channels, experiment with the new channels. But if you're not taking those steps of like building what I call kind of the intellectual infrastructure, building personas, understanding how your segments then relate to your various messages, then you're kind of just throwing stuff against the wall. So kind of my 2 cents on the topic is do the front end strategic work, whether that's internally or with an agency, so you can really understand what you're trying to accomplish. And with that, then you can create metrics that are actually meaningful. Because in my experience, having run an agency, now being client side, most marketers are just kind of going like this when it comes to KPIs.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, for us, I'd split it into the two groups. I'd say brands and marketers, certainly same, you know, we're seeing same reality as what's been mentioned, you know, where a lot of them would come to us without really an idea of what their KPIs should be, and we help them form them. And a lot of times it would be, again, as Rebecca mentioned, you know, how far into that funnel all the way to a purchase, you know, our analytics tools can go. I'd say with TV, there has been an interesting shift there where actually social media, you know, Nielsen, which is kind of the de facto rating measurement, has developed Twitter rating, which now has its place in the monetization world. And a similar approach with Facebook. So for us, another type of KPI is whether we can improve the Nielsen, Twitter, or Facebook rating.
Great.
I don't have too much new to contribute to what everybody said. I mean, a lot of it, for us working with these brands, it does roll up to the bottom line and sales, customer acquisition. You know, ultimately, unless you're a brand with a lot of dollars to spend on just marketing, just engagement, just getting the eyeballs, you're going to need to have some sort of conversions to keep your lights on at some point. And as much as you can optimize the dollars you're putting out to help that, that's what we try to do for the most part. Now, that doesn't mean that everything we do is directly going to be tied to that, but ultimately, you're going to have to hope that the audience that you're reaching is going to end up transacting with the brands you're working with in some way or another.
Great. Mark.
Well, you know, again, in 2015, it's still in social for our customers anyway, all about likes, comments, shares, retweets, plus ones, right or wrong. But, you know, there's now more of an emphasis on how many people actually saw this message, impressions, consumptions, things like that. I'd also say that people are changing their content away from being, here's a picture, what do you think, to, you know, here's a picture, click here to learn more. So things are much more link driven, and those links are tracked, and, you know, there's, I wouldn't say it's like a, you know, hardcore direct marketing thing, but at least they're kind of watching about what people do when they come back to the website or other social environment.
All right, great, thank you. Malcolm, question for you on CleverTap. You had mentioned it, you know, it's a mobile engagement platform. Good. I think you had called it a widget within an app to me earlier. So,
Don't tell my CEO.
all right, he's not watching this. Okay. How is your platform improving the way that marketers can interact with their clients?
So, you know, the world is obviously going mobile, and within mobile, it's all about apps, right? That's how people are spending the majority of their time. And app success is about engagement. The numbers, I don't know how many of you are familiar, but the numbers are just staggering how few people actually stick with an app. It's something like 85% of people that download an app never open it more than 2 times. So that's just and why? Because it's so easy, right? You go to the Play Store, you install it, whatever. If you don't like the first 15 seconds of the experience, like, oh, that sucked, delete. So it's just like, if you're a marketer, it's really challenging. I mean, it's a brand new paradigm. I was in New York last week at another event, and I heard some of the creative guys talking about how they work with big brand clients. And it was so evident to me they had no idea how to deal with this medium. Their background is 30-second commercials, right? That's how all these guys cut their teeth. And now we've got this different medium where there are no rules. People's attention span is like 3.5 seconds. So do I put my brand and logo in the first second? Or do I try and tell an interesting story and string you along for 15 or 20 seconds and hope that if I put my logo and brand there or my message there, that you get it? So we try and help customers by developing out-of-the-box campaigns, one in the 3-day push notifications that integrate with email, and ultimately trying to help them be successful at not just acquiring people, but keeping them. And some companies do that really well. We have the largest ticketing agency in India that generated $1 million with one push notification. So, if you have an audience and you're able to keep them engaged, then you've kind of found the secret sauce and that pearl in the oyster. But apropos of everything we've been saying on social, you better make it interesting, you better make it engaging. Back to where the segmentation, I think, is critical. You better be looking at your different demographic profiles and sending messages that are relevant to each one, as opposed to just blanketing a statement to all of them. It's that kind of real thoughtful consideration. We're building in our platform the ability to create dynamic experiences. So if you're a male, you get a blue background. If you're female, you get a pink background. If you're a loyal customer, you get one type of offer. If you're a new customer, you get a different type of offer. Marketers are going to have to really improve and evolve their skill sets around that kind of targeting and messaging in all platforms, but particularly in mobile, which we obviously power and support.
All right, you had mentioned one-way push. Smita, Stanza pushes events to your calendar, so that's also a one-way push of information. So how does your service help enhance that social conversation?
Sure, and to kind of add to your point about how people do delete their apps, quite frequently, but if you do end up being one of those apps that does stay on people's phones and people do engage with, that is a massive opportunity. And that's kind of been proven over and over again, that whether you're talking about Uber, and I'm going to bring up Slack again, and a company called SeatGeek, which basically is a secondary ticketing platform where on mobile, your conversion rates are at 13%, where compared to Ticketmaster, you're looking at, sub 1%. So there's this huge opportunity here to kind of, again, like beyond just the messaging, beyond just the engagement, to solve a legitimate problem for people. Like, you are on the go. Give me things that can help me transact faster, that can get me, information faster, that can kind of solve, connect the dots. I keep saying that over and over again. And that's exactly what we want to do with Calendar. Like, this is an app that's pre-installed on everyone's phones. And when we started Stanza, the problem that we did not want to solve was a scheduling problem. It was more about a memory problem. Like, we all have things that we need to remember, and along with those things that we have to remember, we want to be able to transact around it. So currently it is a one-way push. You can go through whether it's like Ultra tickets, whether it's a Warriors game, whether it's your teacher with their homework deadlines. You can drop all of that within your calendar. All of it's completely automated in how it updates, and the notification times are set so it's suitable. So if it's for ticketing, buying tickets, it's 10 minutes prior. If it's an actual event, it might be an hour prior, so you know that you can get to the game. And what we're trying to kind of build into is what's coming up as a notification economy, that people are going to have fewer and fewer apps. Like, we basically kind of tapped out on how many apps you can have on your phone that you're going to engage with. And now it really comes down to deepening that engagement with those apps. And notifications is the way that you do it. So it's analytics around how you spend your time, how you're interacting with other apps on your phones, but also what's going on in your day, your context. And so that's kind of what we think is interesting, is building those models, helping kind of customize that information, again, curate that content, and taking it from there.
Right, and also you had mentioned to me before that that you leave some of the conversation to the clients' areas. So you're giving them the information, the content, communication takes place like on NFL's site, as an example, right?
Right. Yeah. And so that's the other thing. It's like there's so many interesting conversations happening at any given point in time, whether you look at Reddit, whether you look at Twitter, Facebook, etc. And so even if you are a super fan of a certain brand and organization, you actually don't know where to go half the time. Like you're just like, well, if I want to talk about the game, do I go to Reddit or should I go follow the score updates on Twitter? And so what kind of becomes interesting here is if you do have a central hub where you have all of these fans that are kind of watching an app, you can direct that traffic. You can be like, hey, so-and-so just scored a touchdown, come follow that on Twitter, or come check out my Periscope, or come do this. And that way, you have the user's attention, you can direct it, and then from there, you can keep directing that user's attention. And I think that's kind of also something interesting, that most larger brands who have an established audience aren't looking for a new channel. They're just looking to kind of make the most of the existing channels that they have.
Great. Okay, a little story time here. Whoever wants to throw out a success story of how you helped your clients or your own business or your client's business to react to the real-time social pulse for some success. Who wants to start?
Go ahead.
All right, I'm first in line. Okay, so I've been telling a lot of stories about using math to get better results, more likes and so forth. This is a little different. But it is Toyota again, so we'll keep with that. They have a new product called the Mirai, and it's a hydrogen-powered car. So instead of like putting gas in this car or plug it in like a Tesla, you go to a hydrogen filling station and it cranks you full, and then you can drive for 300 miles. And it only secretes water, zero emissions, super cool, really cool. Saw it yesterday. And they came up with a campaign for it. You might ask, where do you get hydrogen then? Where's my hydrogen filling station? Well, hydrogen is largely refined from natural gas, but also from ethanol, which comes from decaying waste products, landfills and sewage treatment and so forth. So the campaign they came up with earlier this year was called Mirai, Powered by Bullshit, which is like, very conservative company. I was kind of, okay. And it was a YouTube video that showed, the environmental benefits of this. And this, because it's marked environmental, this is usually the primo content that people really want on Facebook. So we started publishing this, algorithmically, systematically, starting on the East Coast when the graph was most available. And very quickly we got these strikes, spam strikes from Facebook, which is bad, 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 bad. They'll shut down your page. And so fortunately our system was able to see this and then pull that content back, so we didn't publish it and then let Facebook know that, or to know they may have a problem in this. So, this sort of algorithmic stuff, it isn't just about, hey, let's get more likes by doing math. It can also be about, like, let's protect our reputation here in social environments.
Yeah, good reaction.
Great story.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll just, I just reiterate an earlier point. I don't have one specific story that stands out because it happens all the time. Anytime that we release a new product or have something that we're advertising or a promotion or something, people are going to talk about it and people are going to have issues with it and people are going to like it and whatever it is. So we're at the front line ready to respond in real time to whatever the issue may be. And also, in at least for our product with the advertisers looking to connect with consumers, sometimes they want things right away. If it's 2 days before Mother's Day and they have a couple dollars that came available for budget, put something together right away. So we would just do a one-day promotion to give out a Sephora gift card, and just really the big thing is not only on the social media, but to be adaptable, to be agile, to create things as quickly as possible to meet your advertisers' needs. And then once it's out there, it doesn't mean that your job is over. Be ready to deal with the aftermath, good, bad, or otherwise, to react to the reaction from the consumers.
Great.
Mine is probably more of a one of the most fun campaign that we ran recently with Universal Music. One of their artists, Luke Bryan, launched his album. Very popular country music artist, and less than 10 days before the album launch, they called us and they said, we've got a bit of budget, we want to create some buzz around it, what can we do? And they had Luke available for a few hours to interact with his audience. And so we put together a campaign that allowed his fans. It started with Facebook, and it allowed his fans to purchase his album And every person that purchased the album in the first couple of hours got a digital autograph of his album cover. And again, the whole thing worked on Facebook, so someone could write, hey, and obviously we verified that there was a purchase, but someone could write, hey, I just bought your album, I love you, Ori. And then Luke, we built a very small app for Luke to sign, to autograph the album cover, and he dedicated it for every person. I think that we kind of misjudged the success of the campaign, and we thought, in a couple of hours, he's only pushing one post on Facebook. How many purchases can we possibly make? And we also promised everyone that purchased the album in those first couple of hours that they were going to get the autograph back. And I think he had something like 5,000 purchases in the first couple of hours, and the poor guy was just looking at, he had a number. There were a number of purchases on the application that we gave him, just so he knows how many he has to sign. And I think
did he sign them all?
He signed them all, but it took about a month. Oh. And I think his assistant was flipping out on the phone. He was absolutely hilarious. But great, and a great learning experience, I think, for everyone.
Oh, great, love it.
So our experience is a little different again because we're B2B versus B2C. I mean, a lot of my clients, retail in particular, will do kind of the suggestion thing of being able to leverage the data of what people are doing and then turn around and feed them examples of that. But kind of the story I'll quickly tell you is we sponsored TechCrunch Disrupt. I don't know if any of you are familiar with TechCrunch publications, so they had the Disrupt event a couple weeks ago, and we sponsored the Battlefield. And this is how hard you got to work at B2B to be relevant in social media. So we sponsored the Battlefield, and we had Battlefield T-shirts and Nerf guns, and we ran a little program where people came and took a photograph and then tweeted that, and then the winner got an Apple Watch. And we ended up trying to figure out, how can we be competing with, Snoop Dogg talking about his new pot venture and all the hippest startups in the world, and we're a messaging platform. And so we ended up getting our developer evangelist to go and interview a number of the companies that were in the Battlefield competition. And when they were announced, we would upload those and then tweet about it. They would tweet about it. And we ended up getting some customers from it. But, I bring that up to illustrate how many other things we had to put into motion to be relevant, because here we are in the middle of these sexy startup things that are doing, accounting for pot shops and real-time agricultural blah blah blah. And again, it's super competitive. And so I think, again, on the B2B side, you got to be really creative to get on people's radar, because if you don't do something that's relevant and meaningful, as all these guys who really directly deal more with the B2C world attest to, it's just people are going to ignore it. So.
Great. Rebecca?
Well, I already gave you one of kind of how we did that with Halo and the podcast, but, it's kind of something we just do all the time, right? We're always sort of looking for what people are saying and what's bubbling up. We always have real-time analytics turned on and are sort of paying attention to the tone and tenor of the conversation, where it's headed. And I think, some of the things that we've done recently are really around understanding how our brand connects to a conversation that's out there, because again, my role is a little bit less like one-to-one consumer reactions. So pretty much everything that starts to trend on Facebook becomes or Twitter becomes a consideration for us. Is there an opportunity to appropriately take a brand and hop on that trend? One of the ones we did last year that was really fun, I thought, was Valentine's Day. We were working on a show called Community with Yahoo. And so we had asked fans, what are you doing for Valentine's Day? And we started getting really fun, crazy answers. But Jim Rash, who plays the dean, responded with a really funny response. So we reached out to Jim and we said, hey, aren't you guys filming this week? Would you record messages to fans? And he's like, well, I only have a small amount of time on set, and, but if you guys can come down here. So we took our phones and ran down there, and he recorded a set of messages. We only had him for about 15 minutes, and I think we were able to do about 20. So we pre-scripted, and then he's a great comedian, so of course he was able to just kind of do it off the cuff. And looking for those opportunities where we had, especially in Hollywood, right, when you have the opportunity that one of your cast members or a talent that you're working with suddenly gets excited, it's like jump really, really fast because they're excited and they may do something for you that you don't have to pay. Not that we want to not pay our talent, but sometimes the social media people, we don't have all the budget that everybody else has. So if there's an opportunity, like take it and push really hard, really fast. Like we pulled it all together. I think we wrote all the tweets and selected all the people in less than a day and went down there the next day and recorded with him. So I think that's a really fun example of how you can, and the first video we put out had 200,000 views and really cost us not much, just some writing time.
That's
so
great.
Really good opportunities you should take advantage of.
Smita.
So since we're a startup, we get some interesting use cases thrown at us. And one of them, we've been big in the sports space and festival space recently, and one of the people who approached us was Bernie Sanders. And he was like, hey, look, the statistics in California are dismal. Someone who's a millennial has a higher chance of going to jail than ever voting. Is there a way that people can subscribe to a calendar where they drop in their zip code and they'll get an alert that I'm in town? Or that if they can actually have a conference call with me and people can donate to have that happen. And we were like, wow, that's kind of spectacular. Like you're kind of moving from this broad mass audience reach to being very hyper-focused and trying to drive action within a certain age group, certain, demographic, but in a very precise and targeted way. It's also you're going against social and against, everything being virtual, but more personalized and being able to kind of facilitate that conversation. So we're excited to roll that out. I don't have any exciting numbers yet, but it's a way to kind of use mobile and location and again timing in a new way to engage with the user. But that's my story.
Great. You guys are fantastic. We have a few minutes for questions. I'd like to open it up to the audience. Yes.
Yeah. So I actually walked by Damon Lillard upstairs on the Trailblazers, and if he posts out one tweet, they value it as something like $100,000. And we look at Red Bull, the Stratosphere campaign, where they got enormous adoption and tons of social media traction. So a lot of what's been talked is kind of finding an effective way to do get social traction, like your podcasts and things like that. Do you think it makes sense for brands and marketers to kind of approach those over-the-top kind of things like professional athletes or things like Stratosphere to kind of get that traction immediately and get the distribution for a brand on Red Bull when they don't really have anything to do with space exploration or base jumping or anything like that?
I think that influencer marketing is a thing, and it's exactly really what you're describing. It's brands trying to tap influencers who have a certain critical mass in social media and have them promote their brand. I think that we've seen cases where it's successful and cases where it's not successful, and goes back to what was mentioned here earlier, which is the authenticity. If the person that is promoting your brand really believes in it, then and is a user of or likely a user of that product, then I think that you got something there. If not, then not. I think probably the most famous story was this story with Kim Kardashian that got paid to promote a certain morning sickness pill, and it turns out she never took it, and it wasn't safe, and there's kind of huge controversy. So, the right person, the right time, yes.
Yeah, I would just add to that, take the concept of brand elasticity. So if you're Southwest Airlines, you better not be talking about luxury goods, right? That's just not part of what's the public perceives as being your brand. And I would say while celebrity endorsements or any kind of endorsements are always attractive, they have to reflect the brand in an authentic way. So you're not going to get Kim Kardashian to, do a Mensa spot. And it's just, some of that's common sense. I do think that, to the example of Red Bull, if you're like a Red Bull and you've got that kind of edgy, maybe a little bit brand, you have a lot more flexibility. If you're, Rolex, you're kind of in the golf club, Wimbledon world. And so I think, again, it's about how do you align the individual or the spot or the content or anything else with your brand.
I would totally agree. And the one thing I would say is, I see so many people make this mistake, and so many brands don't pick reach over actual authenticity and influence. It is much better to have a fan who really loves you, who has a smaller reach, and who is going to come off as authentic and passionate than it is to have, a big celebrity with a huge following who's going to come off as, they get paid to do that. So, especially in our world where we have less money, don't always just spend it all on the biggest influencer, right? Look at a smaller group of influencers who are going to be more passionate and more empowered, because you're actually going to create more brand affinity that way than you are necessarily just going for reach.
And I don't know if you guys picked up, do you know what the word of the day is? It's authentic. It's been said over and over and over again, right? There's a reason for that. Like, don't sell that short. Don't let that just get pushed aside. That is the most important thing. You have an authentic message, and on top of that, know your audience. Yep. Just who would they like? Who would they respond to? And then that's really probably the two biggest keys.
Great. Any other questions? This nice lady here.
Oh, nice.
You look nice.
Great insight. But I noticed we keep going to B&B, and someone was like, ooh, get back to B2C. Okay, the money's still there, the reach is there, everything's. We need to start getting to B2B. I mean, these are individuals, they're professionals, okay? My question is, where do you see the best channels in the distribution? Because LinkedIn's been around, but it hasn't really done a great job in this. Business Insider's new, and they're doing much better, and a lot of video.
So as the lone B2B guy, I guess I'll speak that. In my opinion, the poster children for effective B2B demand gen that includes social and really the whole kit and caboodle are two companies. They're both in the marketing automation space. One is HubSpot, who's really the granddaddy of inbound, and the other one is Marketo, who's a marketing automation player. We've talked, or I've mentioned, the fundamental differences and the challenges, and you just don't have that emotional connection with a B2B brand. I mean, I'd love to hear, maybe there's one or two examples that kind of don't fit the mold, arguably Slack, but I would counter that Slack's marketing to a very small and discrete audience. So yeah, people who are fired up about audio engineering are interested in Avid equipment, but that doesn't mean that that applies more generally. So it's back to the two things that we've talked about that Aaron mentioned. It's about the authenticity and it's about the segmentation. And where you do that, I've had clients that are marketing to accountants and have gone on to Facebook and tried to search people who are accountants to get them to be interested in their offer. Marginally successful. LinkedIn is great, super expensive, quite frankly. So it's a real conundrum for the B2B marketer. And honestly, people think the money is on the B2C side. It's actually on the B2B side. I mean, that's really where the big dollars are in business. It's not on the B2C side. So I don't think anybody's cracked the nut, but if you want to look at some case studies, before I say that, my biggest gripe is where's the Harvard Business Review for the B2B company that's not just leveraged social media, but all of this marketing technology? There's, hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent. So I think there's a lot of work to do on the B2B side.
I agree with that too. I have some B2B
Sorry,
clients.
do you mind if I quickly add to that?
Sure.
Yeah, so since we are a startup that has kind of acquired publishers through a B2B marketing strategy, we've looked at other companies like Zenefits, is a great example where they essentially use the benefit to B2B marketing is that you kind of have an understanding of what your CPA is, like what would I pay to acquire a new business and how quickly am I going to get my money back. So methods like direct email marketing, I highly recommend, like things like Pardot or Lead Genius, which are again cheaper, much cheaper than they used to be before. You can, get leads, set up your templates, set up your campaigns, and basically look at how you're kind of getting your money back. And content marketing. Pixely is another great company. They do user-generated content for brands, and they've been able to acquire brands by turning white papers into case studies and then, syndicating that across Forbes and other large, publications. So businesses who would be hiring Pixely would read that and be like, oh, let me go talk to these guys. So they used a combination of that. Personally, for us, we found LinkedIn marketing is very expensive, and your CPA is just too high, and your ROI is too low, and people just don't read those messages that frequently. Just getting a premium account and direct messaging is better than using their ad platform. Currently, that's what we found.
Great. One last question to this gentleman back here in the brown shirt. You had your hand up earlier, and then I think we're out of time. We're actually out of time, but since nobody's coming in, let's have at it.
There was a lot of talk about conversation, driving conversation, creating conversations as key to the social marketing thing. And yet, there's also this drive towards things becoming more and more visually based and shorter and shorter. So I just wanted to raise that tension and see whether anyone had some thoughts on it.
Our podcast episodes were 20 to 30 minutes long. I don't think it's about shorter or longer, and I kind of hate that conversation, to be honest. I think it's about quality. I think it's about the story you're trying to tell. Yes, do you have to capture someone quickly? Typically, yes. Like, you need to, like, kind of set the precedent off the bat, like 3 to 5 seconds. You better have something that's going to draw them in. But I think there's absolutely so much room for long-form content when it's done well and when it's something people want to hear about. People still read books. They still watch movies, right? No one said, make me only 15-second movies. We still consume in long form. It's just more selectively. So if you're going to make longer form, I think it absolutely, especially in the B2B space, can be really powerful. We work on HoloLens with Microsoft, and we make long form sort of case study videos for developers, and they're very successful and very well watched. They also reach a consumer audience who is interested in tech, but that's not who we're actually trying to reach. We just kind of reach them by way of it. So I think long form is still completely valid.
Okay, great. Well, I hate to cut it off here, but I guess we are pretty much really over. Great panel. Can we have a hand for our panelists here? I'm sure they're available for extra questions up at the dais. Thank you.